he's going to run again. He's going to lead the party.
That's great.
Again. Yeah.
Great news.
But it's only just yesterday you had this meeting. Do you think that he should have, I don't know, thought about it a little longer, or what do you think?
I think we had a great conversation yesterday. It was a great caucus meeting. Concerns were raised, questions were asked, were answered, and I support the Prime Minister 110%, and I'm fully confident that we're going to form the next government, and we're all united to defeating Pierre Poilievre. Thank you.
How are you going to do that, though?
Did the Prime Minister take enough time to decide on whether he should stay or go? Do you feel he took enough time to reflect?
No, I don't. But I don't think that he felt that he needed to reflect at all. I think his mind was made up.
What do you make of that?
Disappointing.
So what does this mean for you next?
Well, what it means for me is that this is a decision that he had every right to make, and he made it. I did my job by voicing what I was hearing from my constituents. Now I've got to take my energy and direct them to winning my seat, and not on internal party matters. As far as I'm concerned, it's closed.
Do you think, though, the Prime Minister listened to what he was told yesterday?
Yes, I know he did. I was in the room. Yes.
So how do
Yes, he absolutely did.
So if he listened, how does it 18 hours later he still declares he's staying? How do you square that?
He listened, but he wasn't swayed. There's he felt very strongly. Our views weren't the only ones, and like I say, it was a decision that he had the right to make. I don't think that having this feeding frenzy for another 2 or 3 days would have helped anyone if his mind was made up anyway. So, that's that. It is what it is. It's time. Well, me personally, I'm moving on. There's been so much energy burned on all of this, and that isn't where it needs to be now that this case is clearly closed.
What happens next with the dissenters and the caucus who don't agree that this case is closed?
I can only tell you what happens next for this dissenter, and I just did. I'm going to focus on winning my seat, and not on this. And the others will have to speak for themselves.
Do you think, though, is there some way forward with the Prime Minister? I mean, there has to be. I'm just sort of wondering, is he seeing something that you're not seeing? Or is he being delusional and thinking that he can win this thing?
I wouldn't call it delusional, but he's seeing something that I don't see, that my constituents don't see.
Is there any market amongst the people you're talking to? Is there any way for him to rehabilitate his brand and get people to listen to him?
They don't think so. That's what I'm getting. But maybe they're wrong. And maybe he's wrong.
What do you make of his explanation that he thinks he's the best candidate? What do you make of what you heard from the Prime Minister yesterday?
It's remarkably consistent.
Do you worry that, I don't know, some MPs in the caucus might take more drastic steps, like, I don't know, voting in a confidence vote, or maybe even sitting as an independent, and that might, what would that do to the party? Do you worry about those things? More desperate.
I would hope that my colleagues have better judgment than that. Voting non-confidence in the government now plunges the country into another decade of darkness with the Conservatives. That's what it does. Running as an independent splits the vote and has the same result. To a person, every single colleague that I've talked to thinks that Pierre Poilievre in the Prime Minister's office would be a bad thing. Anything that we do that makes that more likely is dumb.
Pierre Poilievre said today that Liberals have approached him and his caucus looking to vote with the Conservatives. I think he said on the carbon tax, but presumably on a confidence motion. Do you believe him? Do you think that's actually happening?
I don't believe it for 1 second. It's like so many other things he says.
Take care. Take care of yourself.
Make of the Prime Minister coming out some 18 hours after the fact saying he's going to stay on?
Disappointed. I expected him to reflect, or we expected him to reflect for the weekend. I mean, it was kind of given a date of October 28th to come back to the group with an answer, and that's a pretty quick response. I think he needs more reflection.
So what does this group do now?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg kind of thing, and obviously there's not really a process that caucus can remove a leader. I mean, We don't have that process, especially a leader that doesn't want to be removed. So, ultimately it's his choice. I'm just personally disappointed that it's less than really, 20 hours after many of us told him he had to, or we thought he needed to step down. He told us he would reflect. It's a pretty quick reflection, and I think he needs to reflect more.
So what are you going to do now?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm just kind of processing everything, and I'm a proud Liberal. I love the party. The reason I'm doing this is because I care so much about the party. I want us to be around in the future, and I think where we're heading is not on a good path. I mean, you see what happened to Kathleen Wynne's Liberals in 2018, and I just don't want to see us do that. I mean, they haven't recovered yet. So, the reason behind a lot of us doing this is because we see the polls, we see what potentially is going to happen when there is an election, and we don't want to see that happen. And we think that the party needs to be refreshed, rebooted, new vision, maybe a little nudge to the center, and we need to move forward with the new leader. Now, I respect the leader very much. I respect Justin Trudeau. I know we've done great things for Canada, but it's not about him. It's not about one person. The Liberal Party is bigger than one person. It's an institution in this country, like I said yesterday, and I feel very, very strongly that we need to make sure we put our best foot forward going into an election. I don't think we have that best foot forward right now. Thank you.
Have you or any of the 24 approached Pierre Poilievre about the possibility of voting with the Conservatives on any issue, especially on confidence motions?
I mean, I can't speak for everybody else. I mean, no. I mean, look, I don't think... I know one of my colleagues said that, a non-confidence vote was a possibility. That's not for me. I mean, I'm not going to send our government into an election. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, so no.
Thanks, Mr. Long.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, have a good day.
What do you make of the Prime Minister saying he's sticking around after some 18 hours, where 18 hours or so after some folks, we hear you were one of them, asked them to step aside?
Well, I'm not going to comment on what may or may not have been said in caucus. Obviously that's confidential. It wouldn't be fair to colleagues to share that in public. But I'm not surprised that the Prime Minister said that. If he would have said anything else, he probably would be a lame duck Prime Minister. And I know the Prime Minister to be a very thoughtful person, and I'm sure with the type of discussion, what was said yesterday, and in a lot of the maybe unanswered questions, the Prime Minister is going to take the time to properly reflect on that, and then be able to come back to caucus and and make the decision that would be in the best interest of the party and the country.
Do you think he took enough time?
Well, like I said, I'm sure the Prime Minister is taking time right now to reflect on it, and like I said, it's not surprising that he said what he did today, because had he not said that, it would have very much impacted the authority that he has as the Prime Minister. He would have been a lame duck Prime Minister.
So you think things might change between now and Monday?
It's hard to say. The ball's really in the Prime Minister's court about what he wants to do, and the case that he'll be making to Canadians, to caucus, about why he's the best leader for our party and the best leader to lead the country. So,
do you think you can win?
Well, that's
with him at the helm, specifically with him at the helm, can you win?
It's up to the Prime Minister to be able to show that he is, and I'm not going to make that case for him. But like I said, the ball's in his courts, and I know there's a lot of unanswered questions that a lot of caucus will be very keen to hear.
What happens if he doesn't go? What happens next week?
Like I said, the ball's really in the Prime Minister's court. He can determine. The decision's really up to him. So I'm looking forward for him taking the appropriate time to think about this and then come back to us with the decision.
Not according to Freeland. She said caucus is king.
Pardon me?
Not according to Freeland. She said caucus is king.
Well, I think that's the case. And like I said, I know the Prime Minister cares deeply about what caucus thinks. And so I think he'll take the proper time and come speak to caucus about it. But fellas, I'm sorry, I got to run to.
Thank you.
Prime Minister says he's sticking around, and that's about 18 hours after yesterday's caucus meeting. What do you think about that?
I think it's understandable that he would say that in the context of an unrelated press conference. But I've had the privilege of being elected here with the Prime Minister and in caucus for about 5 years. And I know him to be someone who is very thoughtful, and I know that he will take the time to reflect on what he heard from caucus members yesterday.
It sounds like he's already made up his mind, though. I mean, I don't know if things are going to change between now and Monday, but it sounds like right now he's saying, I'm staying.
I mean, I think that's a question for him, but my expectation, and based on what I know of the Prime Minister, and based on what I know of the discussions that were held yesterday in caucus, is that he will take the time to reflect. I mean, I'll be frank, I'm still reflecting on all the things that I heard from my caucus colleagues, and I'm sure the Prime Minister will take the appropriate time to do that as well.
But he was asked specifically today, what about this October 28th deadline? Are you going to be Liberal leader past that? And he answered quite clearly, which is yes.
Again, like I said, this was an unrelated press conference on another matter. I think it's understandable under those circumstances that he would answer that way. But I think, but I'm confident that he'll take the time to think about what he heard from colleagues.
Do you want him to resign? Do you want him to step down?
My primary concern is that he have the opportunity to hear what colleagues have said to him in caucus yesterday.
Do you think he can carry on, though? Do you think a leader can go into an election with 24 members of his caucus saying he's not the right guy for the job?
Look, I think ultimately it's the Prime Minister's decision, and so that's a decision for him and a question for him, I think. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis un peu bouleversé par ce qui est arrivé tout à l'heure. Vous savez, on vit dans un pays dont la diversité repose entre autres sur le bilinguisme. Ici, à la Chambre des communes, comme francophone ou comme anglophone, on a le droit de parler dans la langue de notre choix. Et tout à l'heure, j'ai été vraiment interpellé par le fait de me faire demander par un député conservateur de parler en anglais parce qu'il avait posé sa question en anglais. Et c'est quelque chose qui me touche beaucoup, parce que moi, je suis le député de Québec, mais qui impacte aussi tous les autres députés francophones à la Chambre des communes, y compris les députés francophones hors Québec. C'est un droit fondamental de pouvoir s'exprimer en français à la Chambre des communes, et on doit tous le défendre, y compris les députés conservateurs québécois.
J'ai entendu l'échange, mais au début de votre réponse, vous avez dit quelque chose selon les lignes de « j'ai déjà répondu en français ». Je suis juste curieux, pourquoi vous avez commencé votre réponse de même?
Parce que la question était effectivement en anglais et je préférais répondre en français parce que c'était plus facile pour moi de le dire en français. D'autres avaient déjà répondu en anglais exactement à la même question, mais c'était mon droit de répondre en français. Et le député conservateur, par la suite, a dit « ma question était en anglais ». Ma réponse devrait être aussi en anglais. C'était le sous-entendu. Alors, c'est pas comme ça que ça se passe à la Chambre des communes. On a le droit de poser la question et répondre, fournir la réponse dans la langue officielle de notre choix.
C'est quoi vos impressions de M. Brock avec son explication après disant qu'il y avait des problèmes techniques avec sa pièce d'oreille, il ne pouvait pas entendre parce que du crosstalk qui se passait dans la Chambre. C'est quoi vos impressions de sa réponse puis son explication?
Mais avec tout respect pour lui, c'est une très mauvaise excuse. Il aurait dû au contraire s'excuser de devoir dire que sa question était en anglais et qu'il s'attendait à une réponse en anglais. Mes collègues autour de moi ne sont pas tous des francophones. Ils ont très bien compris la réponse que j'avais donnée en français. Je regrette, mais je regrette vraiment de dire que c'est du mépris pour le choix que nous avons, le choix fondamental que nous avons comme députés, y compris comme députés francophones, de nous exprimer dans la langue de notre choix. Et dans mon cas, la langue de mon choix, c'est parfois effectivement le français. Je n'ai pas toujours les mots qui me viennent facilement en anglais, mais c'est correct. On est dans un pays et dans une Chambre des communes qui doivent respecter les capacités de langage de chacun des députés.
Malgré le fait que M. Brock n'a pas dit les mots « je m'excuse », est-ce que ça vous dit quelque chose qu'au moins il a reconnu les droits dans la Chambre du monde à répondre ou à poser des questions en anglais ou en français après qu'il ait dit ça? Est-ce que ça vous dit quelque chose?
Moi, je pense qu'il devrait s'excuser, qu'il doit s'excuser. Peut-être qu'il a dit ça puis qu'il ne le pensait pas vraiment, mais c'était à lui de le dire. Mais il l'a vraiment dit. Moi, je suis assis en face de lui. Il s'est levé en disant « ma question était en anglais ». Alors, pourquoi est-ce que je dois répondre à une question en anglais, alors que j'ai le droit, comme député francophone, de répondre en français à une question qui est en anglais?
Dernièrement, pour moi, j'aimerais avoir vos impressions des comments du premier ministre aujourd'hui disant qu'il restera comme le chef du Parti libéral.
Bien, moi, j'ai toujours dit que M. Trudeau a toute ma confiance et toute ma reconnaissance d'être un leader, un dirigeant d'un des grands pays industrialisés du monde. En 2024, ce n'est pas facile de diriger un pays du G7 avec tout ce qu'on voit sur la planète. Et il a mon entière, comme je disais, reconnaissance pour tous les efforts qu'il fait et gratitude pour le fait qu'il veut continuer à faire ses efforts pour le bien des Canadiens.
Malgré ce qui vient d'arriver dans la Chambre, est-ce que je pourrais vous demander de répondre en anglais aussi pour mes collègues à CBC? De la question de M. Trudeau.
I think everyone that knows Canada knows that Canada is a bilingual country, and that we have a House of Commons in which members of Parliament, English or Anglophone or Francophone, have the right to speak in the language of their choice. And what we just saw earlier is an Ontarian Conservative MP who implicitly asked me to answer in English because his question was in English. Now, that's not how it works. There are members of Parliament that find it easier to speak in one language than in another, and that's not only fine, but it's a right that everyone should have. And to be honest, I have never heard that being alluded to before in this House of Commons, at least in recent times, and I would have expected the Conservative Member of Parliament to apologize.
And sorry, lastly, just on your impressions from the comments from the Prime Minister this morning saying that he will stay on as party leader.
Well, he has made that view known again, and he has, as he knows, my full gratitude for the work that he wants to continue doing for the benefit of Canadians. We have achieved together great things over the last years, despite all of the difficulties that we Canadians have been facing, the pandemic, the post-pandemic inflation, the conflicts on Earth, the climate change crisis. So the fact that he is willing and certainly very able to continue that fight for Canadians in the years to come is something that I welcome very much.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde.